The Honda Ridgeline is by far the weirdest midsize pickup truck out there. Thanks to its unique unibody platform, the Ridgeline inherits countless car-like qualities, some of which go in its favor and some of which hurt its performance and image dearly. So let's check out the 2025 Honda Ridgeline's pros that might surprise you, as well as the cons that you can't ignore. Let's start with the good stuff you should expect when buying a 2025 Ridgeline. Number 3. Fantastic driving characteristics. One of the key selling points of the Honda Ridgeline has always been how incredibly good it was to drive around. And how couldn't it be? It's a unibody platform that is derived from the Honda Pilot, which makes it a very engaging pickup truck to drive thanks to its rigid suspension and sharp steering. The same is true for the 2025 version too. You see, its unibody construction allows it to be considerably more rigid compared to other pickup trucks, which utilize a body-on-frame chassis. This is because the suspension and the body are intertwined between each other, which results in much lesser body roll in twists and bends. Not even the Toyota Tacoma, which utilizes coil springs at the rear, can rival the Ridgeline. As a result, you will hardly find a pickup truck that can offer half of the driving characteristics that the Ridgeline does. Number 2. Great comfort levels. Again, since the Ridgeline utilizes a unibody platform, its comfort levels are very enviable. Sure, it's not an S-Class, however, it is far better than most pickup trucks in its segment in every possible way when it comes down to comfort. You see, body-on-frame pickup trucks almost always must choose between comfort and drivability. This is because of the previously mentioned issue, which is body roll. To limit body roll, manufacturers tend to stiffen up their trucks as much as possible, which in turn makes them extremely insufferable to drive around, especially around town. This is the case with the Chevrolet Colorado, which is heavily criticized for its extremely compromising comfort levels. On the other hand, some trucks such as the Jeep Gladiator are overly soft both to increase comfort and off-road ability, which increases body roll and makes them nauseating to drive around on open roads. The Ridgeline, however, eliminates these issues. First, its suspension is a perfect balance between firm and soft, allowing it to be very good at going over potholes, while also allowing it to retain all the structural rigidity when being driven aggressively, as we mentioned previously. In addition to that, since the Ridgeline has been developed alongside the Pilot, its interior, specifically the back seats, allows for more space and comfort than its rivals. As a result, if you're looking for a truck that is primarily a people carrier and a driver's vehicle, you won't find a better vehicle than the Ridgeline. Number 1. A tried and tested platform. Let's face it, the Ridgeline is an old vehicle. It has been on the market for 7 years straight, and as much as that has its drawbacks, which we'll tackle later, it also has its benefits. You see, because the Ridgeline has been on the market for the better part of a decade, most of the issues it faced have been sorted out years ago by now, and the vehicle has only been improved since. Plus, it's not like the Ridgeline had any severe problems to sort out anyways. The 3.5-liter V6 engine has already been proven, the suspension is very durable, and the electric systems are far less in your face and far less crucial compared to more modern options out there, allowing the Ridgeline to feel more analog and in turn, more honest as a vehicle. As a result, if you're searching for a tried and tested vehicle that'll serve you for years on end, you will have a hard time finding a better alternative to the Ridgeline. Seriously, even the new Toyota Tacoma has more reliability issues than the Ridgeline, and it invented reliability next to the Colorado or the Gladiator. However, not everything is good with the Ridgeline, and some of these issues might be a deal breaker for you, so let's check out the negatives for the 2025 Ridgeline. Number 3. Very limited truck-like capabilities. Being a unibody pickup truck also has its drawbacks, the biggest of which is by far how much it limits towing and payload capacity. You see, because the suspension and the body of the Ridgeline are practically woven together, the body can twist far less than body-on-frame trucks. And while this is good news for on-road performance, the loss of elasticity is a huge problem for any serious work with a Ridgeline. Most of the midsize pickup trucks on offer today have significantly better towing capacity than the Ridgeline. Take for example the Ford Ranger, which most consider to be the gold standard in the segment. It has a towing capacity of 7,500 pounds, which is exactly 50% more than the Ridgeline's abysmal 5,000 pounds. The Chevy Colorado and the Jeep Gladiator, which have been dominated by the Ridgeline in terms of driving characteristics, now annihilated in terms of towing. Both trucks can tow over 7,700 pounds, making them the true workhorses of the segment. In addition to that, the Ridgeline also falls short of the segment's underdog, which is the Nissan Frontier. The pre-redesigned model could tow up to a mediocre 6,200 pounds, which is pathetic, but it's still better than the Ridgeline by 700 pounds. The facelift kicks its butt though, as it can tow up to 7,150 pounds, which is pretty good. In addition to this, the payload capacity is also the worst in its class, as the Ridgeline has a payload capacity of less than 1,600 pounds, albeit most trucks have a range from 1,600 pounds to 1,800 pounds in this regard, so it isn't that big of a deal. What is a big deal for a pickup truck though is off-road performance, and in this regard the Ridgeline falls flat on its nose. All, and we do mean all, the pickup trucks on offer can run circles around the Ridgeline off-road, as it has been primarily designed to be a pavement princess. Sure, it could get off the tarmac from time to time, but you must remember that this is, after all, a crossover at its base, which makes it significantly less capable than any of the other workhorses it goes up against. The Honda Ridgeline is like a city boy in overalls. Sure, he can get dirty, but he's definitely gonna complain about it constantly. Ugh. Number 2, a mediocre engine. Another key issue with the Ridgeline is its power plant. Don't get us wrong, we love a V6 under the bonnet whenever it's needed. However, we're not sure why Honda would fit this engine to the Ridgeline. Sure, the 3.5 V6 is a pretty decent engine in itself, pushing out some 280 horsepower and a little less than 270 pound-feet of torque. It's also a single overhead cam engine, meaning that it's both simpler and more reliable than most other engines in its class, and yeah, it's also simpler to maintain. However, we find it redundant in a chassis like this. If the Ridgeline was a proper workman truck, then yeah, this would have been a welcome addition, as even though it isn't particularly potent, it would have compensated for its shortcomings by being exceptionally reliable on extended periods. However, as is, the V6 just doesn't fit in. It chugs more gas than it needs to. This truck is, after all, designed to be a mile muncher, and a smaller Turbo 4 would have allowed the MPG figures to be much better, which would in turn be more economical in the long run, especially around town. That said, this isn't a deal breaker for us. It's more like a head scratcher. But the next issue is definitely a deal breaker though. Number 1, dated interior and exterior design. Do you know what grinds our gears? How could Honda look at the Ridgeline and say, yeah, that car looks like it can advertise for over $42,000 for the base model? Like, do they even have eyes, for God's sakes? Just look at the exterior. It looks more like a pickup truck from the late 2000s and early 2010s than a 2025 model. That wouldn't be an issue per se if the Ridgeline was a budget pickup truck, but it isn't, as we've already established. It's the most expensive pickup truck to buy into in this segment. In addition to the exterior, which looks more dated than the discontinued Pilot it's based on, the Ridgeline also has a horrible interior. Just look at this. Does this give out 2025 vibes to you? Now, sure, we mentioned earlier that with fewer electronics come fewer problems, but the least Honda could have done was arrange the interior a bit better. Just look at these climate controls. They're awfully cluttered and incredibly hard to use thanks to the millions of buttons surrounding them. All in all, it's very evident that this is, after all, a decade-old design, as it doesn't fit in with the current Honda lineup. Now, that wouldn't be an issue if this was a budget truck, but since it costs so much, you just can't recommend it to most buyers. It might be best to wait for next year's model, as the Ridgeline should get a redesign then. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.